this is an end grain cutting board blank. I think in a previous video you saw me finish one of these. I think 5 years ago I made four of these boards all at the same time, and this is the reject basically. Um, Basically, as you can see there, there's a bit of a gap between two of the rows there, and if we come down to this end, if I put a straight edge up against it, you can see I put a lot of tension into the board during the glue up. It's kind of an amateur mistake. You really need to use a pawl like this, just a piece of wood at the end, and then clamp on that, and it'll help spread the load. I think it was made worse by the fact that I was clearly trying to close that gap down at the other end due to some other defect, and that's just never going to work. During your dry fit, if it's not perfect, don't go. So anyway, I basically left this board sit for about 5 years just to see what would happen to it. I thought maybe with all the tension I put into it, it would start to separate or move or do some weird stuff, and it didn't. So I feel pretty confident that I'm going to try to fix this. And so on this end, I'm going to do an inlay right here to cover up. It'll be a 1/4 inch deep inlay on each side. And then down on this end, I'm just going to straighten up this edge in the table saw and just cut it straight. It'll probably be obvious when you look down it, but I think it should be fine. Yeah, basically this board's about 1 inch thick, and I'm going to do a 1/4 inch inlay on each side. And definitely going to make it a lot harder being end grain, but I think that's the best practice. Since it's a cutting board, you don't want any air gaps underneath there like might normally do on some kind of decorative inlay. But here you really need it to be solid. So here's a little shot of my process basically. I tend to sketch, so I got a little sketchbook with various things. So I was sketching, some basic contours of hummingbirds, and kind of sort of settled on this one, which is pretty just iconic. What we're really looking for is a contour, and so essentially this is sort of what I came up with. Trying to make the shapes really simple, so I don't have very many of them. But basically, we're shooting for a hummingbird within a background of a circle. And so that's basically the rough I did with pencil. And then when I bring that into Fusion 360. So let's take a look at that. So here we are in Fusion 360. I think I'm just going to not turn this into a tutorial on Fusion, but just kind of give a general overview. So I took a photo of the page in my sketchbook, and then I imported that image. In Fusion, you can pretty much import any image you want as a canvas, and that's what I've done here. And then you can calibrate the image, and so I told it between this point and this point over here, I want this to be 4.5 inches, and so that'll scale the canvas, the image, to that dimension. And then I use that to then sketch on top of it, and so that's what you can see here. And I just used splines to copy the lines and make them look as nice as I wanted. I kind of changed the design of the wing, the back wing here from my sketch a little to make it look better. And I did want pieces of the bird to pop out from this core circle, and then I should call this out. This little detail here, the end of his beak, I have to make sure that is at the same size or bigger than the smallest end mill that I have. And so the smallest I have right now with a flat bottom is 1/8 of an inch. And so that's what that dimension is constrained there. And then same thing on the tips of the wings and this part. So just don't make any shape that you can't really do based on your tooling. And that's pretty much it there. You can kind of get the gist. I sort of had to decide, how many colors of wood I wanted to use. And so I decided on 3 here. So I'm going to use one for the background, one for the body, and then another for the wings. So I cleaned up the edges, squared up the board. I'm going to live with this defect. The edge of the board is straight, and then the pattern bows in due to the amateur clamping mistake. Recovers nicely over here. And then here's our defect again. And so these are the pieces I've glued up. These are now end grain, so the flat grains on this side, and this is the end grain. And that's going to be the circle, and then that's hard maple, and then this is purple heart and white oak. And so the purple heart's going to be the actual hummingbird, and then the white oak be the wings, maybe. I didn't really flatten these quite yet. Anyway, you get the idea. So let's see how this goes. All right, so back in Fusion 360 here, kind of wanted to go over this strategy. At least my experience with doing inlays on the CNC is that usually if it's like a decorative inlay, you want the side wall of this to be kind of angled, and usually in a decorative inlay you don't care if there's air between the piece you're putting in and the bottom. But in this case we really do. So the side of the inlay is vertical here. I'm really looking for a precise fit, and I don't want any air between the two pieces, or you're going to feel it when you cut on it. And so anyway, here's the bit of the strategy I'm using. And so this is where we're now in the manufacturing part. So here's the cutting board. Here's the circle I'm going to cut. In real life, I've already cut the circle out of the white maple. And now I'm actually going to cut the hole in the board. And I want to sneak up on it. And so I've done sort of a rough pass here, which hogs out most of the material, and then essentially it leaves a little bit undone. And then for that little second pass, I'm actually just coming through and just going to go around, and so that'll take us to the final dimension. And then what I'm doing here is I go back between the model, I go back to design, and I actually change the parameter I have that defines the diameter of this circle. And then basically I make 10 separate tap files, basically, each in which this circle is growing by 1/1000th of an inch. And essentially I'm going to the exact dimension and then 1/1000th over, and the next file is 2/1000th over, and so I have 10 thou, because I don't actually know. I don't really want a friction fit. I want a little bit of room for glue, but not a lot of room. And so I don't know where that is with my machine, or these particular woods, or the humidity in my shop, blah, 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 whatever. And so I'm just going to prepare all these 10 files and then run them, making this hole bigger and bigger until the plug I have fits the way I want. And so that's sort of how I approach this. And then I'm setting the work coordinate to be the center of the circle. And just know that, you know, between me running these files, I don't want to ever change that work coordinate. I don't want the power to go off, or worse yet, you know, if I throw, you know, what my hard e-stop, I will lose this work coordinate, and it'll be harder for me to find it. I can find it, but it'll be harder and be better if I don't. So anyway, that's the process that I used to do this. All right, so this is tooth thou, just to prove that the bit's actually doing something. You can see all the chips there. All right, let's see if this fits. So close. So in the end, I kept going up each file until I actually got to the full 10 thou over, and that produced the fit that I was looking for. I don't know whether it speaks to, you know, the machine's in precision, or how, you know, wood changes or fibers or whatever, but that gave me the best fit. So just be aware that that's maybe what you need to do. I think each machine is going to be different, each situation. So in the next steps, I actually did it in the model, and I made the model for the wings and the body be 10,000ths, you know, smaller than the space that I cut for them. And there it is, driven in. Obviously, put a hole in it. to let the air escape. I know there's going to be another part of the inlay there, so it should be fine. And yeah, it's basically half of it embedded in there. So the piece was 1/2 inch thick stock, and the recess is 1/4 inch. So, all right, next. Here's a final look at it. Basically, I rounded over the edges. And on the other side, I have a groove, a juice groove. Anyway, just to get you in here, it's not perfect, but for a first attempt at this kind of inlay, it's not too bad, in my opinion. We'll see how well it holds up. It's 1/4 inch thick. The whole board is only 1 inch thick. Typically, I think people say 1.5 inch for an end grain is minimum, but I find they get kind of heavy, so I try to push the limits. It's pretty much dead flat, which is nice. Yeah, and then on the other side, if I can lift it up, I just put the same kind of juice groove. If you've seen a previous video, it's pretty similar. I still still didn't get my entry and exit quite right. Getting Fusion 360 to do a slot that, in my opinion, is a slot, and it's in its opinion is not a slot. Anyway, I don't know. Struggle is real. And then these are kind of interesting. I don't think this is anything I did. I think it's part of the wood. You can see it's in the same piece again and again. It's probably an old branch, maybe? Don't know. Anyway, here's where the groove cut into the inlay a bit, which is fine. So anyway, probably get one more shot when it's seasoned. I think I'm going to let it sit like this for at least a week. Let that glue cure up as hard as it's going to before I put mineral oil on it. So anyway, so I guess we're gonna see how it holds up over time. I can put a link in the description. I don't know, I'm sure other people have seen this guy. He makes end grain cutting boards with these really elaborate inlays. Anyway, this is the Fisher-Price version. I wonder how his hold up over time. He does use the beveled sides, so anyway, different strokes. Okay, bye. Thanks for watching.